Making ads right now has never been harder. Costs keep climbing, attention keeps shrinking, people are scrolling faster than your hook can actually load. And when you do manage to stop the scroll, fewer and fewer people trust you enough to actually make a purchase from you. They've seen it all, right? These consumers know what an ad looks like. They also know what you're trying to do. So that kind of makes them put up their guard a little bit long before your hook can even close. I'm Sarah. I'm a creative strategist who has spent the last few years studying both consumers and ads to try and figure out why some ads flop and why some ads hit from a psychological standpoint. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 ads that are actually working for me right now. And more importantly, I'm going to show you the psychology underneath. That way you can put them in the ad account and they'll keep working long after the trend that they're just kind of riding off of is dead. First format I want to start with is actually the point of view ad. This style of ad is really, really interesting because nobody's doing it right. Most point of view ads are point of view and caption only, meaning we say it's a point of view, but we really just kind of cut to a random talking head, right? Very center framed creator, perfect golden hour kind of lighting, like pristine makeup, the whole thing. That's not point of view, right? That's a testimonial with point of view slapped on top. This ad is lovely because it's the real thing. Like if you watch the camera, the shot straight at kind of like the top of this person's head really does feel like we're kind of looking in our own mirror. The hand holding the device reads as your hand, like the viewer's hand, and the result is happening to you. It's not happening around you. There's nobody between you and this experience. And this is why I love this style of ad. And it's why this kind of matters psychologically. When your brain sees a first person hand kind of doing an action, your motor system tries to rehearse doing it yourself. So if you've heard a little bit of this like mirror neuron kind of language, this is kind of what it looks like. It's an embodied simulation of what's happening in the scene. And a true point of view helps people answer, is this me? Not is this for me, but is this me? The brain is scanning everything in the background, anything that it can see in the scene to try and figure out if this looks a lot like what I have experienced in my own life. If you're going to make ads like this, please, please, please make sure that you're building it for actual point of view and not just like a say. Format number 2, the multi-series. I kind of love this style of ad because this is when a brand kind of runs the same ad type over and over and over. And I say type in particular, not format. This ad type obviously is just a comparison between one stack of calories and another stack of calories. But the interesting part is you can actually reuse this in the ad account quite a lot just by swapping out different elements within the frame. On its own, this ad would probably do pretty well, but this brand actually hasn't run this ad just once. They've run it often and it works incredibly well as a multi-series. The psychological mechanism behind this is really interesting. It's actually mirror exposure effect. Your brain treats anything familiar as safe. So the more times you run into something, the more likely you are to know, like, and trust it. By our 3rd or 4th time of like scrolling and seeing this kind of format, the brain starts to stop a little quicker, scroll a little slower, and stay a little longer. Now, before I hear like, but Sarah, like Meta's gonna ding me. Okay. Let's look at this one other thing before we start to talk about that. Meta doesn't like similar concepts, right? That's the reason why the new creative similarity score kind of exists, but it does value interesting concepts. If you've got a proven storytelling mechanism like this multi-series format, and it consistently performs well, you should slap that into your next batch of ads since the story is what's actually making this ad work. Make the surface obviously different enough so that Meta understands we can send this to a different person, right? So change out the calorie count, change out the types of foods that you are actually using in your shot, those types of things. As long as it's an interesting concept, you should be able to use this multiple times and not get dinged for it, mostly because the concept is different enough that Meta will be able to surface who it should send this to. You get familiarity with your audience and you get a little bit of novelty with the algorithm at the same time. Format number 3 here is the subtle flex format, and I love this one. This one is actually almost too simple, and I chose a static for this reason. If you can produce an ad with a single image that's so iconic, anybody could look at it and immediately understand what it means, that's the type of ad you want to make. The one that I pulled here is actually a self-tanner. The entire premise, though, is that it only has 2 words in it, right? You see these 2 legs that are completely different colors, 2 words before and after. You don't really need like a whole lot of explaining, and that's a subtle flex. There's an interesting reason why this works psychologically called processing fluency. I think the most underused levers in all of paid creative. Processing fluency basically means that if your brain can process it easily, it trusts it more. This is why a lot of people say that you should go for clear over clever, which I tend to agree, unless you just have like superhuman abilities to be funny while being clear. We can talk about that later in a whole nother video. But when your ad kind of makes you do work to understand what it's trying to communicate, like long paragraphs of copy, right? Like 6 different claims, a ton of different bullet points, what have you. That effort reads to the brain as doubt. No one who's worth it has to do so much convincing to get people to understand that. The flex here isn't loud, and that's on purpose. A clean, kind of near wordless ad is easily communicating like, we don't need to convince you that this is good. It just is. That signals way more status than any caption ever could. So I love subtle flex. Please run this in your ad account. Quick side note here, everything that I am doing in this video, talking about like ads and the psychology underneath them, showing you the actual mechanisms so that way you can rebuild it in your ad account. I do this live every single week inside my community, the Tether Lab. Each week we learn one new psychological mechanism that you can apply to your ads today. And yes, I do mean all of them. You could apply these to all of them. Inside, you also get access to my library of 497 tested ad types, 30 plus concept prompts, full creative strategy breakdowns, a Notion system, and weekly lives with me and more. Come sit in on a live teardown, take away a few ideas, run them in your ad account. If I haven't earned a spot in your week by day 14, I will refund you 100% of your money. No questions asked, no harm done, no hard feelings. Link is in the description, so go check it out. Okay, back to the ad formats. Format number 4 is the micro-learning format, and I don't think this one is used nearly enough, especially on carousels. This is an ad that teaches you something before it asks you to buy something, which is why I love these as ads. The one that I pulled here is actually a carousel format, and I pulled this specifically so that I could show you. Format comes secondary to the sequence here. The first card in this particular ad actually lays everything out, like it shows you what exactly you're going to learn and what the brand stands for. Very simple icons, processing fluency. We got pasture raised, grass fed, no spray, all kinds of good things, especially if this is something that you align with as a person. One glance at this and you've kind of already picked up a dozen things that might align with you. Every card after that, though, goes like one level deeper, which I really, really love. The nice part about doing this in a carousel, which is really interesting, is it's a great qualifier. Like only the person who really wants to know more about these things will scroll through this. And so it works incredibly well if you're trying to draw in a very specific type of customer. This is why this works psychologically. The mechanism at work here is actually reciprocity, and it's one of the oldest psychological mechanisms in the human brain. When someone gives you something, like even if it's just a little bit of value, like they make you laugh or like they tell you something interesting, right? They teach you something new. If you feel a small kind of like almost involuntary kind of a pull to like give them something in return, that's reciprocity. Especially when an ad teaches you something without asking for something in return, you feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, this was so interesting. Like I have to give back in some way, even if the only thing you're giving back is attention or a save or a click, what have you. One thing to watch here, because I think this is where brands kind of blow it a little bit, don't teach random trivia. Right? This ad probably has a very high frequency. I'm going to assume this is probably a retention focused ad, which it's probably serving to a pretty warmed up audience, right? Colder audiences. You want to teach the exact thing that your best customers are interested in, but don't inject you. Don't inject the brand. You want to teach interesting things about your industry, your products, or like your methods, but leave them thinking like, oh, this is interesting, right? So there's the right version of this particular product is obviously out there, which it is. It's yours. This sets you up for a really easy sell, and it also helps you understand your customers better. Format number 5, lo-fi one-take yaps. We cannot talk about what's working right now without bringing up the yap. I feel like everybody's talking about the yap these days, which is so funny because from an organic standpoint, this particular content type has been around for decades. The one that I pulled here is actually a sleep gummy ad, and I paused on this one mostly because of the way this woman is lying in bed. So let's watch this and I'll point some things out.
I suffer with insomnia, and so I always have a restless sleep. So I'm looking for something that can help with that. I started taking the Lemmy gummies. I also did these other gummies that were actually really good, but
Okay, so interesting parts here, especially past the hook. This woman is really just lying in bed, right? She's just filming herself on a phone, like a little bit of offset angle, which I really like. She's not center in the frame. There's no big cuts here. There's no B-roll. Like it's super important too. There's no lighting setup. There's no script that you can like easily detect. Although as a marketer, I can kind of tell that there's some talking points that she's definitely trying to hit. But this is the least polished thing in the entire feed. It's being used so incredibly much now that it's kind of beating creative that's probably 40 times more expensive than this. Here's the reason why this one works psychologically. Your brain is running a constant background filter. It is always asking one thing and one thing only when it's scrolling content, and that's, is this an ad? It can only tell if it's an ad if it sees things that feel like an ad. I'm talking like really clean cuts, very, very quick movement, suspiciously good lighting, like a voice that kind of sounds like it's reading from a script. The lo-fi one-take yap kind of strips out all of the signals that this is an ad. right? This causes the brain to stop looking for ad signals and just watch the content. And the scan kind of comes up empty every single time, right? If it can't find ad anywhere in the feeling of the actual video, then it's going to end up processing the entire thing anyway. All it's going to hear is a real person is talking to me about something that they care about, which might be something I should care about. So I should stop and watch. All that attention and trust, which usually gets attributed to just real humans, then gets attributed to you and your brand. These are the 5 formats that I'm testing this quarter: literal point of views, multi-series, subtle flex, micro-learning, and lo-fi yap. None of these are platform tricks, right? And none of them are really true trends. Obviously, there's some storytelling work on top of it that people are consistently using, but the reason they're working right now is because they're built on how the brain already works. Mirror neurons, contrast effect, processing fluency, reciprocity, et cetera, et cetera. Format on top will keep changing. So don't expect, obviously, for that to stick around long, but it's the wiring underneath that won't. It's worth building a system around these kinds of psychological mechanisms instead of chasing kind of the next hot trend. If you want to do more than just watch me explain all these things, come hang out with us in Tether Lab. Every single week, I'm on call with members, breaking down ads, talking about what's working, what's tanking, so that way we can build these big, solid creative strategy systems around the psychological things that make ads work. Link is in the description, or scan the code, and I will see you in the next one.